Welcome, everyone, to the January 2025 Agenda Review Meeting. We have a pretty light schedule today, so at this time, I'll turn it over to our Executive Director, Amy Brooks.
Thank you. Good morning and Happy New Year, everyone. I hope everyone's enjoyed the holidays. It's been relatively quiet, or at least a more normal pace for us here at Planning since our last meeting, which is a welcome reprieve, I think. So I don't have a lot to update you on today, but I did want to share some information related to our application submittals. So we have been discussing this for some time, and we'll be transitioning to requiring a pre-application consultation in advance of application submittals for county plan amendments per the new comprehensive plan, and as well as applications that require site plans, so anything such as special uses, some use on reviews, development plans, concepts. The purpose of these meetings is really to better serve our applicants by providing this preliminary opportunity to discuss the nature of their request, but also review in greater detail what we'll be requiring as part of that application. So we'll be able to provide them with a detailed list of requirements. So these meetings will include both city and county staff, and they'll begin with the April agenda items. And we'll be sending out a notification to all our applicants and putting something on our website soon. So that's really all I have to share with you all today. And we'll, if anyone else has any other updates they want to share with the group. If not, we'll jump into the agenda. So we'll start with Ms. Hillman on agenda item number 7.
Yeah, this is case 1B25RZ, 1B25PA, and 1B25SP. It's a rezoning for 2 lots that are each slightly over 10,000 square feet off Callahan Drive near its intersection with Old Callahan Drive. Access to the property is through Campbell Lane, which is an approximately 11-foot wide private residential street. There's a fairly steep slope down from Callahan Drive to this property, making exclusive and direct access to Callahan challenging and possibly prohibited due to how close a new driveway would have to be to the existing one. The request is to rezone from RN1, single-family residential, to CG1, general commercial, and amend the land use plans from MDRO, medium-density residential office, to the Callahan Drive mixed-use special district. The subject property contained 2 single-family homes until around 2010 when they were demolished. There are 3 occupied single-family homes adjacent to the southeast, which utilize Campbell Lane. Adjacent to the northeast is a long-standing RV and outdoor storage facility. The current MDRO land use classification for this property reflects existing residential uses in the area, whereas the requested mixed-use special district reflects uses more like the abutting commercial use to the northeast. The special district emphasizes general commercial and light industrial uses. As you can see in the description, that's a little too small on the right-hand side. It would expand zoning considerations to include light industrial and commercial districts. The requested general commercial zoning would be an outlier in this area. The corridor does have a variety of commercial uses and zonings, but not the kind of pedestrian orientation or business district character. That's the intended location for the CG district, and it would be the only CG zone in this area. Staff are recommending denial of the plan amendments because there have been no changing conditions in this area that warrant an expansion of a more intensive land use onto this substandard private residential street abutting single-family homes. The existing MDRO land use is not the result of an error or omission in the one-year plan or the Northwest City Sector Plan. Excuse me. CG1 was likely selected because it was the mildest commercial zone that permits a desired use by the applicant, but it would be a spot of CG1 zoning in an area where it doesn't otherwise exist. Commercial zoning in this specific location would conflict with the general plan's development policy 8.4 to protect residential areas from encroaching commercial development and other incompatible uses. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I had just a question on the frontage to Callahan Drive. Is there a separate property between the subject property and Callahan Drive, or is that just a big setback? Or
It's just a big right-of-way.
right away, okay. So could they potentially have access through that right of way to Callahan Drive directly, or?
I think it would be challenging. It's a very steep slope to get, like, the existing road is graded, but they'd have to deal with a pretty significant slope downward to their
Okay.
property. And then also, I don't know if engineering could speak to this, but having two driveways so close together could also be a challenge.
Yep. And there's other issues obviously too, but I was just curious about that one. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can move on to agenda item number 8.
This is rezoning 1C25RZ, 1C25PA, and 1C25SP. This case is for a 6.2 acre lot at the end of North Burns Road in the Town Hall East neighborhood. The request is to amend the land use plans from low-density residential to light industrial, and to rezone from RN1, single-family residential, to IG, general industrial. And the HP area and overlay would be retained. In the main aerial image, you can see that this lot is located at the end of a wooded, single-family residential area. North Burns Road has steep slopes and is unstriped, and it does get as narrow as 15 feet wide in areas. In this historical aerial image from 1998, in the lower right corner, you can see that the lot was once used as some sort of landfill, some sort of kind of industrial type use. But that would have been a code violation at that time because the zoning has always been residential on this property. And that activity ceased a while ago. The warehouse that was built more recently in the main image is also a code violation. While there is IG zoning in the general vicinity, those locations are generally better suited to more intensive uses based on their more direct access to the interstate or their compatibility with surrounding development. The context for the subject property is much different with its steep slopes, residential street access, and surrounding homes. The requested light industrial land use would be isolated among low-density residential land uses. So staff are recommending denial of the industrial zoning and land use classification because it's an inappropriate area for such intensive uses. Heavy trucking traffic on a road like North Burns could be dangerous and create a nuisance for residents. Permitted uses in the IG district could have an adverse impact on the safety and property values in the neighborhood, and this would be in conflict with several development policies in the general plan, which are designed to protect residential areas from encroaching intensive and potentially blighting land uses. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Now we're going to turn it over to Samuel to talk about 11A 24SU.
So this item 13 is a special use request for a duplex in the RN1 district. The property is located on Mineral Springs Avenue, north of Whittle Springs Middle School. We are recommending denial of the case because the application does not meet the location criteria of the one-year plan. But this was a difficult one for us since the application meets other criteria for a special use approval. The land use classification is LDR, which stipulates that the property is subject to the location criteria. There are two nearby duplexes on Mineral Springs Avenue and a multifamily development across the street. A duplex would be consistent with the character of the area. The property has steep slopes, primarily in the rear portion. Slope analysis recommends a maximum disturbance budget of 29%. Looking at the site plan, the duplex is proposed on the relatively flatter portion of the property. It has one unit facing Mineral Springs Avenue and other unit facing the proposed driveway to the east. While the front entry is not a dominant feature on the street-facing elevation, as you can see on this elevation drawing to the right, principal use standards in Article 9.3 stipulates that this is required for lots that are larger than 1 acre. This is required for lots that are less than 1 acre, and this property is larger than 1 acre, so the requirement for primary entrance to be dominant feature is not required for this property. Staff recommends denial of the special use request because the property does not meet the location criteria. On the right, we have a screenshot of the location criteria mentioned in the one-year plan. For example, the proposed access is not off of a collector street. Mineral Springs Avenue is a local road. The property is also not in a transitional area between residential and non-residential use. It is not in an area having a gross density of over 5 dwelling units per acre, and it is not part of a planned residential development. Yes.
Is the site big enough to have two separate single-family? I missed how the square footage of the site, or you said it's over an acre, right?
It is over an acre. The current zoning would not allow two principal structures. The applicant initially submit an application that proposes to subdivide the lot. But there are some challenges with the HB regulations. They are only allowed to disturb a maximum of 29%. Because of those challenges, they revised their application and removed the other duplex from their site plan.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Based on the criteria you just listed, is it fair to assume that, the adjacent duplexes would not be permitted under those same criteria today as well?
I would say so.
Okay.
If they are in the RN1 or RN2 district, which requires a special use.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Samuel. Now we're going to go to agenda item number 21. We presented on this one last month. If you all recall, this is a final plat that staff was recommending denial, and it got postponed 30 days, so it's back before you. I think the issues have not been addressed. I just have asked Spencer to briefly go over it to refresh your memory.
All right, so it's agenda 21. Sorry, I don't know. 12 SA, 24F, as Amy said, you've all seen this before, and basically we're in the same situation we were last month, where we haven't received the required revisions or road improvements yet. Phase 1 of subdivision here created 66 lot. The plat's proposing additional 24, and staff is recommending denial of the case as the applicant has not satisfied all the conditions of the concept plan. Required revisions to the plat were not completed, and the applicant has not agreed to postpone the case. And it's zone PR with one other property nearby, zone PR, but this is mostly agricultural. It's on the edge of the planned gross area and rural area. And if you look at aerial, they've built out the streets. They started developing some of the lots. And the concept plan for Isabel Estates was approved in October 2021 for 90 lots. And condition number 3 stipulates that up to 66 lots may be platted prior to either a left turn lane on East Emory Road being installed by the applicant or future improvements to East Emory that include an eastbound left turn lane at the Brackett Road intersection are complete. And neither of those improvements has been completed at this time. So this plat for Phase 1 came before the Planning Commission in was approved in November of 2023 for 66 lots, and this was the maximum number of lots allowed before condition number 3 applies and those improvements to East Emory are required. And so the proposed plat for Phase 2 creates those additional 24 lots, resulting in the total of 90 lots as shown on the original concept plan. But since neither of these road improvements has been completed, the applicant has met with engineering to discuss alternatives to satisfy the condition, and both TDOT and the county law department concur the developer needs to install the left turn lane as required by the concept plan. Engineering has advised the developer an MOU will be needed to be executed before they will sign the final plat, and until that MOU is executed, the condition of the concept plan remains and the final plat cannot be approved. In addition to the required road improvements, there are some revisions to the plat that are necessary, as can be seen. Planning provided initial comments to the applicant on October 16th, and we have never received a revised plat that satisfies those comments. And if the plat was approved by the commission as shown on the agenda, it would have numerous areas and would not comply with subdivision regulations. So to conclude, we are recommending deny the application as the final plat is not in submittal with substantial compliance with the concept plan. Required revisions are not completed and the applicant has not requested to postpone the case. As a reminder, the Planning Commission only has authority to approve or deny the request or to postpone with the applicant's consent, which we have not received at this time. I can take any questions.
If I remember correctly, it was postponed last month, and the applicant agreed to that. Have any idea why he's not made the changes?
I spoke to Jim and Steve about this. All I'd heard since is they just said an MOU will be needed. I guess with the holidays just getting busy, we just hadn't heard back.
Yes. We had met with Mr. Davis and Ball Homes to hopefully try to get an MOU in place or get an agreement on an MOU, and we've not heard back since the meeting, so we don't know. We're still in limbo with them.
So I guess that was my question / comment, because we're talking about two different developers on two different parcels of property, and I was hoping they would come together, everybody be able to come together and work on that improvement on Emory Road, but I guess you answered the question where Ball and Mr. Davis are trying to get together, but they just haven't done it yet.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Follow-up question, is it, I assume you all have reached out to them about postponing again?
Yeah, we reached out to them. I believe it was right after we got back from Christmas. I sent an email to the surveyor, who is the applicant and developer, and was asking, do you guys plan on seeking postponement again? And we have not heard back from them.
Okay.
And just a reminder, they must agree to that postponement. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Spencer. So now we'll turn over to Kelsey for agenda item number 25, so another rezoning.
This is a request to rezone from agricultural to low-density residential for a .46 acre property located on the northwest side of Bell Road in the Halls area. We were informed that a letter was distributed to the neighbors describing a potential scenario for this property, but what was described in that letter is not actually feasible under the dimensional standards of the RA zone that is requested. Since the mid-1980s, the area has gradually transitioned from agricultural zoning to residential zoning. Low-density residential and planned residential with up to 4 and 5 dwelling units an acre is prevalent in this area. The surrounding area features a mix of residential and agricultural land uses. Access to the property is from Bell Road, a major collector street with a pavement width ranging from 15.5 to 17.5 feet. Development trends for the section of Bell Road between Brown Gap Road and East Emery Road have been primarily residential, consisting largely of single-family homes and limited townhouse developments. The subject property's place type is suburban residential, and the RA zone is considered directly related to the suburban residential place type, as it provides for areas with low population densities and is intended to protect the residential environment from the encroachment of incompatible uses that do not support a residential environment. The rezoning complies with the Comprehensive Plan's Implementation Policy 2 to ensure that new development is sensitive to the existing community character. The allowable uses and lot sizes in the RA zone are consistent with other residential developments in this area. The subject property is also within the planned growth area of the Growth Policy Plan, which calls for reasonably compact pattern of development. The rezoning supports the intent of the planned growth area based on the lot sizes and housing types that are permitted in the RA zone. Because of these reasons, staff is recommending approval of the RA low-density residential zone because it is consistent with the plan and surrounding development. Are there any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Kelsey. We'll move on to agenda item number 28, 1I-25RZ. There's been quite a few comments submitted on this particular case.
So this is a rezoning of 19.09 acres from agricultural to planned residential up to 5 dwelling units an acre. It's at the corner of Shady Lane and Cunningham Road. It's also just west of Beaver Brook Country Club. The property is also about 1.5 miles from west of Maynardville Pike, a major commercial corridor. The surrounding properties have been transitioning from agricultural to the RB general residential, RA low density residential, and planned residential with densities of 2 to 6 dwelling units an acre since the 1990s. Most of the surrounding subdivisions are single family residential with some attached houses. The PR zone is intended to provide flexibility for different types of residential development to encourage imaginative solutions to environmental problems. There's a blue line stream through the middle of the property, and there's some hillside protection on the southeast corner, making PR an appropriate zone to consider as it allows clustering. The suburban residential place type calls for primarily single-family residential with lots smaller than 1 acre and attached residential, such as duplexes, multiplexes, and townhomes. The requested PR zone allows these type of housing types by right. The recommendation is to approve the PR zone with up to 5 dwelling units an acre because it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the surrounding area. Any questions?
I do have a quick question. So how many parcels are involved in that? I see multiple parcels with the same name, like there's a house fronting on Cunningham.
That one's not
It's
included.
just
That one's
the-
not included. But then the one off of Shady Lane is, and then the acreage behind it, right?
Yes, I think it's just 2 parcels. It's what's outlined on the screen.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
This next one is a denial. It's a rezoning of 4.39 acres from agricultural to neighborhood commercial. It's on the west side of East Governor John Sevier Highway, just south of the Veterans Cemetery. This site is adjacent to Knox-Chapman Utility District and large lot single-family homes. The area is mostly agricultural and forested tracts. Currently, one single-family subdivision is nearby to the south, and a development plan for 145 lots was approved just north. The CN zone is intended to provide for reoccurring shopping and personal service needs of nearby residential areas, and development should be compatible with the character of the adjacent neighborhood. This zoning should generally be placed at street intersections that include either a collector or arterial street, as close to the edge of the neighborhood as possible. While the property is on an arterial, it's not at an intersection or the edge of a residential neighborhood. There is residential development in the area, but not of sufficient size to support a commercial zoning. Additionally, John Sevier is a highway with a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. This corridor is neither mixed-use center, mixed-use corridor, nor walkable neighborhood node. So the recommendation is to deny the CN zone because the property is inconsistent with the intent and location criteria of the CN zone. Are there any questions?
So I missed the zoning of the adjacent parcel with the utility company.
It's agricultural,
But it,
the
from the
utility.
street view, it kind of looked like it had an office on it. Is it more of a industrial or commercial use on that zone? Like, is that what we're seeing
Oh.
right there?
Yes,
Okay.
I would say, yeah.
So if that
industrial.
were to be zoned more appropriate for the use, and may not be able to speak to this, but what, do you have any idea what that would be, what zone would be appropriate for that use that's there? Well, I guess if the utility company wasn't occupying it, just the, from this, I see a warehouse and an office building. So when we're looking at it as ag, this, a commercial zone seems very out of place, but next to something like this, it seems like there could be maybe more opportunity for something to fit in that's more like that. So that's why I was curious about that, if maybe there is a more appropriate commercial type zone that would would allow for similar uses and I guess use intensity there.
Well, the place type is rural conservation, and they were only allowed to request neighborhood commercial. So I don't think the future land use is going towards that direction.
Okay, thank you, Whitney. We'll switch over to agenda item. It's our last one on agenda, number 39. This is an other business item. I don't believe we received any comments about this one, but we like to cover these type of similar use determinations with you all. You don't see them very often. Just make sure that you all are comfortable with it.
Thank you. Okay. So as Amy had mentioned, that this is a similar use determination, and what this is, so a similar use determination is an application that allows the planning commission to consider a requested use within a zone, and the planning commission is basically evaluating whether that use is similar to other uses already listed in that zone. So in this case, it's a request is for an indoor sports and recreation facility in the I industrial zone. So the I zone allows planning commission to approve other uses of similar character to permitted uses and deemed appropriate. The applicant notes that the proposed use is similar to the permitted use of indoor paintball range. Our recommendation is to approve as requested with additional referencing at NAICS code that references the types of uses that are of similar nature, so that when somebody comes with a specific use, codes can look at that code and see if it's allowed in that district or not, or by this request. So in this case, the NEI, I can't remember what it all stands for, but it's a national classification system for different businesses or business types. So that code references the fitness and recreation sports centers, and I'm not going to go through the full list of uses that are permitted in there, but down here at the bottom, they kind of, oops, I can't see my cursor. Down here, it kind of gives you an idea. It says aerobic and dance exercise centers, ice rinks, skating rinks, gymnasiums, physical fitness centers, handball, racquetball, tennis clubs, swimming and wave pools. So it kind of gives you an idea of the type of uses that we're talking about. There's a much more broad use than that, than that little example list. I'm not going to go through all this, but generally the industrial zone is the most intense zone in the county. It has a very broad range of uses. I listed out the general categories of uses permitted. There are other uses, more specific uses under each category, at least most of the categories. But you see it has everything from construction-related uses, finance, manufacturing and assembly, mining, warehouse and distribution, waste handling, wholesale trade, indoor paintball ranges, and then there's that I, which is the one that we're kind of using here, that the Planning Commission can approve other uses, demolition landfills, wireless communication facilities, and public safety facilities. Again, I'm not going to go through the applicant's full rationale for this use, but basically what they're saying, the type of buildings that end up in the industrial zone, a lot of them are flex buildings. They're larger with open floor plans, and they lend themselves to conversion to indoor sports facilities, and that's what they're requesting is indoor sports, not outdoor sports. So, everything from soccer fields, football fields, could be baseball practices, basketball. So that's really what they're gearing toward. And they're these types of facilities have a little bit different operating hours than the typical industrial zone. Some businesses obviously operate on multiple shifts, so they might be open longer than, say, typical commercial use. But these uses do have a different peak time than, say, typical office type use. So they might be a little bit offset from other businesses in the park. Industrial zones also are usually on major roads, which is good for this type of use because they do get a lot of traffic to them at times. They're saying the typical operating hours for their use, in particular, would be from about 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We do ask that they provide information about their particular use, even though this request is not for just their use. It will, if approved, it would be available in all industrial zone properties. So you got to think about that way. Is the use not only potentially harmful to the adjacent or the other uses in an industrial zone, but maybe are the other uses in the industrial zone potentially harmful to this use? So part of that is a property management thing. You're not going to have, particularly you would hope, a sports complex wouldn't open up next to something that's harmful in the industrial zone, but just got to be mindful of the types of uses that we're recommending for the different zones. So, and also, because these uses do have extended operating hours a lot of times, and business parks do too, There's already some buffers and other things built into the industrial zone that should help with adjacent properties. So to help offset any negative effects. In this case, I believe, so this is off of Amherst Road. So this is the property, Ballcamp Pike here, Shad Road just to the north with Amherst Elementary. Their proposed structure is here, just to the north of this residential subdivision. The property is zone industrial, it's been zone industrial for a long time. They're just intending to build out flex buildings for industrial uses, and one of the potential tenants is an indoor sports facility. So they don't, my impression is that they're not really changing what they're building regardless of what the tenant is, but indoor sports is one of their tenants or potential tenants. I guess, does anybody have any questions about the use and the industrial zone?
I think I do. I'm a little confused about, you made a comment that if we approve a use, that it translates to all of the industrials. Did I hear that
Yeah.
right? So I noticed you had listed up there like paintball was allowed. So if they had a paintball in there and we go to I don't know, roller skating, if we approve the roller skating, then we're essentially adding a use which is a similar use to all industrial buildings. Is that?
Yes, so they're calling out specifically that indoor sports recreation is similar in nature to the existing permitted use of indoor paintball ranges, because it's a different type of recreational type use, even though it's similar in nature. That use does have supplemental regulations. So there's additional standards on top of the basic industrial zone for indoor paintball facilities. But really the only one that applies is a minimum size, like floor area of 25,000 square feet. And there was another, the other thing that applied was because of the nature of indoor paintball ranges and the type of equipment that they have there, they have to get approval by the sheriff's office and the health department and TDOT because they have gases and other things that could get delivered to them and stuff. So, but those really won't apply to the. We're not intending for those to apply to indoor recreational facilities.
I'm not one for special uses, but it seems like in these instances that it would almost be more appropriate to look at these through special uses, that there could be some, I guess, unique characteristics to a certain industrial area, and where one might be a similar use, it might have a different impact. I hadn't thought this through. I'm just talking as I receive the information here. Does that?
I mean, it could be looked at that way. If the planning commission approved it as a use on review versus a permitted use, then it could be handled as a use on review.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, that is what I was going to add, is that if you did it as a use on review, you would be able to look at each location individually and determine if it is appropriate for that location versus making it a use by right.
Okay, thank you.
My question is like about the reverse. So if industrial was not what was already zoned there, and someone was seeking the most perfect zone for this particular type of use, what would that be?
Probably a commercial, like CA or CB. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are other avenues that could be taken. What I was trying to prevent is someone wanting to do some indoor recreational thing and having to zone it industrial, which would have so much higher intensity uses that would be bad, so.
Yeah. A lot of times we see them in the CB zone where there's warehouse business, like parks and that kind of thing, so.
Yeah.
I think the downside to going to CA is these are primarily industrial buildings, and it would really, limit their flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could potentially see like a large, big box store have some of these types of uses in them, maybe, but like, it's a reuse.
I've got a kind of a follow-up question. I guess, when we're talking about potentially a use on review or something like that, with respect to this one application that's been made as a similar use determination, let's just hypothetically say that we approved it as a use on review on Thursday. What would happen to this application? Would that force them to come back through and reapply? Or is there a way to say, okay, it's already been reviewed almost?
No, because we didn't really review the use. We just, like, the site plan and the use per se, we were just looking to see whether the use is of similar nature to other uses in that zone and whether it's deemed appropriate, whether we think it's appropriate for that
Good.
zoning.
Just a clarification, thank you.
That's all that's on our agenda. Any items that commissioners would like to bring up, staff or anyone else? If not, we're adjourned.